good evening. Welcome to week 6 of Structural Analysis 1, taught by Professor Amit Shah. I am Trisha Chakraborty, one of the course teaching assistants. I'm a PhD student at the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. As always, I'll start with a brief recap of the previous 5 weeks. In week 1, we looked at the types of internal forces. There are 4 types: bending moment, shear force, torsional moment, and axial force. And according to what kind of forces structural elements carry or transfer, they are classified into trusses, beams, or frame elements. Truss elements only transfer axial force. Beam elements primarily transfer bending moment and shear force, and frame elements transfer all three. And there are also classification of boundary conditions which hold the structure in place, so that when load is applied, it doesn't undergo rigid body motion. There are several types like roller support, pin support, fixed support, and they are classified based on what mode of movement or what degree of freedom they restrain. So roller support, for example, restrains only one degree of freedom, the translational degree of freedom perpendicular to the surface it is lying on. Pin support restricts all the translational degrees of freedom, so it gives two support reactions in the 2D plane and three support reactions in the 3D plane. And fixed support also restrains all the movements, all the rotations. So there are basically 6 degrees of freedom at any one point in a 3D space. There are six degrees of freedom, three translational and three rotational about the three mutually perpendicular axes, which we call x, y, and z axis. You can call x and y in one plane, and z is the perpendicular to both of them. And then there is a concept called structural indeterminacy, which is to do with how much redundancy there is in the structure. So the more safe it is, the more indeterminate it is, and we need special conditions to analyze that. They are more difficult to analyze. So far, we have determinate structures, and from next class, actually, we move on to indeterminate structures. The first 6 weeks are studying only determinate structure. Okay, and the main topic of week 1 was bending moment and shear force diagram, BMD and SFT, which as I've said before, is the force or stress type response developed in beam. And similarly, in week 2, we looked at the force or stress type response in a truss. So first, we have to idealize the truss and see whether the truss is stable. And once we know that, we can solve the member forces in a truss using method of joints or method of sections, and we can find out the axial force in developed in each member of the truss. Similarly, in BMD and SFT, we find the bending moment and shear force profile along the length of the beam. So that is about all related to the force or stress type response in these two elements. And frame elements is a combination of both. So generally, we also draw BMD and SFT of frame element and also find out the axial force distribution. But generally, in UG courses, the focus is on beams and trusses, not as much on frames, because frames are much more complicated to calculate by hand. So they are generally analyzed using softwares like StatPro. In week 3, 4, and 5, the previous 3 weeks, we have looked at the displacement or strain type response. So for trusses, first we start with the principle of virtual work, and from that, there we develop a unit load method to determine the nodal displacements of truss. So the x displacement and the y displacement of each node of a truss. So if we have that, we have the net displacement at every node, and so we can draw the entire the deformed shape of the truss. Week 4 and 5 was about the deflection profile of beams. So just like we draw bending moment and shear force diagram along the length of the beam, we can also draw the deflection profile. The deflection is perpendicular to the axis of the beam. So if you name this the x-axis along the length of the beam, then the deflection will be in the y direction. Elastic curve equation method, which is deriving it from the first principles. So we go by the governing differential equation, which has a d2y dx square term, where y is a function of x and it is the deflection. So so we integrate it once to get dy dx, which is the slope at any point x, and we integrate it again to get y as a function of x. So that is the deflection profile along x, and integrating twice gives rise to uh, two constants of integration, and those we solve using the boundary conditions. And then there's moment area method, and then there's a conjugate beam method, which are shortcut methods based on, like, they will tally mostly with the elastic curve equation method. But while the elastic curve equation method is a method from the first principles and gives us the entire deflection profile, for conjugate beam method and moment area method, we have to choose which points we are working with. So only at those points we'll get the deflection and slope. So it is a shorter method, but it also gives us less information. So just like by method of joints in trust, we get to solve the member forces in all the members in the trust. But by method of sections, we cut a section smartly so that we get whatever we are looking for. Like if this is a particular member I'm concerned with, why should I solve the entire trust? So that will take more time, right? So that is why method of sections is a shortcut. These two are methods are also shortcuts. And today we will look at influence line diagram. We'll start with the Mueller-Breslau principle, which gives the influence line diagram qualitatively, and then we'll look at how to get it quantitatively. So absolute maximum bending moment and shear force under point load, series of point load, and uniformly distributed loads greater or less than the span. There are two. Now this is a general knowledge kind of thing. We'll start with that because obviously civil engineering is a very practical subject. So rather than just studying methods and learning to solve problems, we should know why we are solving those problems. The whole point of structure analysis is we need the process of analysis before design, so that we know that what is the response, the stress and strain response being developed in each structural element, so that we can say that whether this material is enough or not, whether this cross section is enough or not. So for design we need analysis first. And why do we need influence line diagrams? We'll look at that now. So there are two major types of load: dead loads and live loads. Dead, you would have heard of that. Dead load is the self weight of a structure, including the flooring but not the furniture. Stationary and constant loads, they do not change over the lifetime of a structure. Hence, the variation of bending moment, shear force, deflection along the sections are also constant. So just think about whatever you have done so far. When we were finding out the BMD SFD or the deflection profile, we had only one fixed loading pattern. We didn't vary the loads, we didn't move the position of the loads. The loads and the boundary conditions we assume to be constant with time. So these are dead loads basically. Dead loads are loads which do not change over the lifetime of a structure. So the methods which we have learned so far is fine for dead loads. But live loads are furniture and people weight inside building, wheel loads and passenger weights in bridges. So all kinds of loads which are time varying. So position and magnitude vary with time. So in that case, whatever we have studied so far is not really covering the whole part, right? You cannot say that suppose you are analyzing a beam here, like a beam of a bridge. Suppose that the deck of a bridge, you cannot give a fixed loading pattern. You have to see what is the effect of a moving load on the bending moment and shear force, and also on the deflection. That is why we have to study influence line diagrams. A diagram that represents the variation of stress functions such as bending moment, shear force, reaction force, slope or deflection at a fixed section when a unit concentrated load moves from one end to the other end. This is at a fixed section here is very important because a lot of people are completely unable to distinguish between the basic conceptual difference of a bending moment diagram and an influence line diagram. They look similar, like they look similar in the sense we draw the beam, we plot the diagram along the length of the beam. But in bending moment diagram, the ordinate at each point, the section is varying. Like if I take the ordinate at the midpoint of the beam, that is the bending moment developed at the midpoint of the beam for the particular given loading. Similarly, for shear force diagram, the as we increases, like as the shear force diagram varies on the length, it is like if the shear force diagram varies on the length at any point when I see the shear force, the magnitude of shear force diagram, it is the force at this section for the particular given loading. But in influence line diagram, I have to fix the section. I am saying that I want the for influence line diagram, we have to fix the moment and the kind of force we are looking at. So suppose I say that give me the line diagram of the bending moment at the midpoint. So for a moving load, so here if this is the influence line diagram, suppose there is some influence line diagram of the bending moment at the midpoint section. That means that at every position when I look at the magnitude, that means that the unit load is acting at that point, and due to a unit load working acting at this point, the bending moment developed at the midpoint is this, the ordinate at that point. So for bending moment diagram, the load position is fixed and the section is varying, And for influence line diagram, the section is fixed and the force is varying. It is just a unit concentrated load. We do not have UDLs here. For influence line diagram, we just take unit concentrated load. So when we have some other, suppose I actually have a 5 kilonewton wheel moving, then we can just multiply the magnitude of of the ILD to get that, because uh, civil in like these kind of structures, so long as they are within the linear regime, they follow the principle of linear superposition, which means that suppose I have a, for example, just consider BMD. You have, suppose you draw a bending moment diagram due to a concentrated load here, and then you draw a BMD separately for a concentrated load here, and then if both the forces act together, you can just add the two BMDs and get the overall response of the structure. Similarly for ILD also that happens. So we just start with the ILD itself is defined as a unit concentrated load moving, and whatever we need actually we can just multiply and add and manage it. Once we have ILD of a particular stress function at a particular section, we utilize principle of linear superposition to calculate total effect due to a combination of loads, which is what I just said. So let's look at examples straight away, because it's a concept that takes some getting used to. So influence and diagram for determinate structure. The simply supported beam. Suppose this is a simply supported beam, and I want the influence and diagram for the reaction at A. You can choose any reaction, any bending moment at any section, a shear force at any section, a deflection at any section. Those are the quantities. That is the quantity you have to fix for ILD. So the ILD for RA is what we are looking at now. So what I want is I will move a 1 kilonewton load from A to B, and I'll see how the reaction RA is going to vary. So how do we do that? We take, just like we do for BMD and SFD, we take a section X and put the 1 kilonewton at section X from A, like distance X from A. Let unit load be at a distance X from support A. To find ILD for RA, consider the moment about B. This is just what we do. So sigma MB equal to 0. So RA into L in the clockwise sense, minus 1 into L minus X in the anti-clockwise sense, because from this point of action of this load, the point of action of this load to B, this length is L minus X, and this is in the opposite sense. So RA into L minus 1 into L minus X is 0. So from that we get RA is L minus X by L. So this is a linear diagram, right? So RA is proportional to minus X, and at X equal to 0, this value is 1. So you can also understand that if I am applying a load at the reaction itself will take the entire load. So if I apply 1 kilonewton at the one end, RA will be 1, and if I apply the 1 kilonewton at the other end, then RB will be 1 and RA itself will be 0 completely. So the RA will look like a straight line which goes from 1 to 0. So here, ILD for RA is, it goes from 1 to 0 linearly, since it was directly proportional to minus X. Similarly for RB, to find ILD over RB, let's take the same diagram and consider the moment about A. So what we get is RB into L in the anticlockwise sense, right? Yeah, anticlockwise sense, plus that's why it's minus RB into L, plus 1 into X here, because this is X here, right? This is, I'm considering the same diagram. So this is minus, this is plus, because they're in opposite senses. So RB is X by L. So at X equal to 0, RB is 0, and at X equal to L, RB is 1, just the opposite of RA. So this looks like this. It is also a linear diagram which is proportional to X, so it goes from 0 to 1. And you can see that at any point RB and RA will add up to give us 1, which is exactly what we know from, if I just take the general equation and equation of equilibrium along y-axis, what will be right? Like sigma Fy equal to 0 will be RA plus RB equal to 1. So the influence line diagram of RA and influence line diagram of RB will at any point will add up to give us 1. Then we are looking at influence line diagram for shear force at XX. Here I have taken a section at C, which is a distance A from small a from the from the left end. So see, we are fixing the section. Before that, ILD for RA, we know the section which about, like what we are considering. RA is a particular force, RB is a particular force. Shear force at C is a particular force. I fixed the section C, and I want for portion now. Now again, since this is a critical point here, we have to take we have to take a section in AC, and we have to take a section in CB separately, just like we did for bending moment and shear force diagrams. So portion AC, when unit load is within AC, that is x less than A, SC is plus RA minus 1, because plus RA here and minus 1 follow the sign convention of shear force. So left positive, right negative. Like left up is positive and right down is positive. So SC is L, and now RA expression I already know in terms of x. So SC is L minus x by L minus 1. So it's overall minus x by L. It is a linear variation with x again. And now again, when we have a linear profile, to draw the diagram, we can just put the end values and find it. So at x equal to 0, SC is 0, and the other end here is at x equal to A, which is point C. SC is minus A by L. So this part you have seen. At A it's 0, at C it's minus A by L. This part we have drawn. Now we have to go to the CB portion. So when we are in portion CB, when unit load is within CB, that is A less than x less than equal to L, SC is equal to RA, because this 1 kilonewton has moved beyond C. So if I'm coming approaching from the left side, by the time I've reached C, I have only seen this RA. The 1 kilonewton is that side, it does not come into the calculation. So it is equal to RA, that is equal to L minus x by L. So again, I put the end values. At x equal to A, it is L minus A by L. At x equal to L, SC is 0. So see, there is a jump. Just like in bending moment, just like in actual shear force diagram, if there is a point load, there is a jump. In influence line diagram, when the section itself where I'm finding the shear force is crossed, there has to be a jump. So this magnitude is L minus A by L, and it's 0 again. So it goes like this, jumps and goes like this again. And influence line diagram for moment at C. So for portion, again we do approach in the same way in portion AC. When unit load is within AC, that is x less than A, MC is RA into A. So let's see, I'm considering about the bending moment at C. So RA into small a minus 1 into A minus x, right? RA into A minus 1 into A minus x. So again we put the value of RA here. RA expression of RA is L minus x by L into A minus A minus x. That is this is the expression. This is also a linear variation again. Now you know that for in this linear variation here is just because MC is proportional to x. You don't have to, like, don't trace it back to bending moment diagram and shear force diagram. Those are different things. We put the extreme values. At x equal to 0, MC is 0. At x equal to A, MC is this. So let's see, from 0 we go to A into L minus A by L. And when in portion CB, when unit load is within CB, that is A less than x less than equal to L, MC is again the 1 kilometer has moved that side. So when I'm coming from the left side, I only encounter RA. So RA into A. That's simple. And you will see that when we put x equal to A, here we again get the same value which we had here. So the ILD for the bending moment is a continuous diagram here. Then it goes to 0. So here there is a jump in the shear force, but the bending moment diagram is continuous, though it has a change in the slope. So this is how we draw ILDs for reactions and for shear force and bending moment. This is the basic concept. There can be a lot of other examples, some of which we'll look at, but this is the basic concept that is followed. Just like if you know how to draw the shear force diagram of a simply supported beam, those are the same concepts you are going to use in more complicated structures with internal hinge, with knife edge, with UDL, with everything. But the ultimate concept is that you have to take a section and you have to find the bending moment to shear force, either approaching it from the left or from the right. So was this part clear? I'll wait for 5 minutes if you want to think about it, because this is a little confusing, like a little difficult to get used to. So this is a cantilever beam example for ILD for RA. We take a 1 kilometer node, we take a section from X from B here, a section at distance X from B. You can also take it from A, you will end up with the same result. So ILD for RA, draw the, we draw, write down the vertical equilibrium equation, we get RA is equal to 1, that is constant. Because wherever the load is the vertical reaction at the fixed end will be 1. SC here there is a jump. There has to be a jump here. Like C is the section, so here it will be 0. Then here it will be 1. And for moment at MC also, while the load is here, there is some non-zero moment. But once it is here, there is no moment. Like this part will remain constant 0 because the load has moved beyond this point when you are approaching from the right side. And ILD for MA is when the force is at the tip of the cantilever, the magnitude of the moment reaction would be L. So this is L, and when the force is exactly here, there will be no moment generated. So here it will be 0. So this is a straight line like this. Simply supported beam with overhang. The concepts will be similar. You have to just take this portion and this portion separately. So these are intuitive. You can just write down the equations and see. Now, the Muller-Breslau principle, qualitative ILD, the ILD of any stress function in a structure is represented by its reflected shape, obtained by moving the restraint offered by that stress function and introducing a directly generalized unit displacement in the positive direction of that stress function. So using Muller-Breslau principle, if I want to draw the ILD for RB, what will I do? I will remove the restraint RB, and I will lift, like I will give a unit displacement here. So now imagine there is no roller, there is only a fixed end here. There is, sorry, a pin support here, and I give a displacement at B. This is A here. I give a displacement at B, so it will move like this. It will move up. At the point A, it will be 0 because there is a fixed support, a pin support here, but it will rotate like this. It will rotate just like this. So that is how the diagram will look like. And then you can find out the magnitude of the ordinate by writing by the properties of similar triangles. Application of ILD. Now this Muller-Breslau principle is not very useful because it just gives a qualitative idea, and for qualitative idea, once you are comfortable with the concept of drawing ILDs, you can very quickly draw the quantitative one. So we don't really need the qualitative one separately, and once you are comfortable, you can also visualize it easily without using this principle also. Effect application of ILD, to study the effect of a moving load on a structure, to find the position of live load which will produce maximum value of a particular stress function, that is bending moment or shear force. This is very important. So during design, what is the critical thing we need to see? We need to design it against the maximum stresses being generated, right? Because that is what we are concerned about. The maximum stress is what will make the structure fail, if at all. So I need to find the maximum bending moment, maximum shear force at a particular section, and then I need to design my beam to withstand that. So if it withstands the maximum, it will of course withstand everything that is less than it. And also to calculate total value of a particular stress function due to a multiple load system. So this follows the principle of superposition, linear superposition. The application of influence hand diagram. Find the shear force and bending moment at a section shown for the loaded beam. So we draw it. We draw it using the concepts that we have learned. And now if I want to find the shear force and bending, sorry, if I want to want to find out the shear force and bending moment at the section, what I can do is I can draw the influence line diagram
இதை
for
ஆன் பண்ணி வச்சுக்கிறேன். வெயிட்ல கொஞ்சம் இருங்க, அது ஆன்ல இல்லை, ஆன்ல வச்சுருக்கேன். ஆன்லைன் கிளாஸ் போயிட்டு இருக்கு.
yeah. So what I can do is, if I want the shear force at this section, I can just draw a simple the influence and diagram of shear force at that section, which looks like this. And then what I will do is I will see what is the actual load being applied. So what I will do is I will find out, so 50 kilonewton is here, so I'll find out the ordinate at this point C, and I will multiply yc into 50, and then I'll see this UDL is being applied from D to E. So I'll find the area of the curve and from D to E, and I will multiply that with 60. So 60 into half, and this is a trapezium, half into YD plus YX1 into 1, this length is 1, plus 60 into half into this length 2 into yx2 plus ye. So we get this trapezium area positive, multiply with 60. You get this trapezium area negative and multiply it with 60. and you multiply this negative yc by 50. So I get the shear force. So even without drawing the shear force diagram, simply with the simple influence line diagram, we can find out the shear force. Similarly, draw the influence line diagram of the bending moment at xx, and then find out like 50 into this length yc plus 60 into this area. Here both of the trapeziums are positive. So same way we can get the BMD and SF, the bending moment value and shear force value at a particular section if we have the ILD of that section. And the ILD is generally easier to draw than BMD SFD. Like if you have to draw the BMD and SFD of this section, this beam, imagine you have to go take one section from A to C, then C to D, then D to E, then E to B. It will take a long time. Instead, just forget about the forces. Just draw the ILD, which is just one kilonewton force moving. You already know how it looks like of XX. It will go. It will have a jump. It will again go like this, just like this. So you also already will have a good idea once you have solved a certain number of problems, and then you just multiply the area under the curve with the forces. Similarly, two wheel loads 60 and 50 and 150 kilonewtons, space 2 meters, move on a girder 12 meter long. Find the values of maximum positive and negative shear force at a section 3 meter from the left end. Any wheel load can lead the other. So now at CC, first I draw the shear force diagram. The influence line diagram for shear force at C. It goes, it jumps, it goes. And similarly, the is there a moment? No. Okay. So now just think how you can generate the maximum shear force. How should you just place the wheels? So it's obvious that this is the highest ordinate we have in the entire diagram. So if the larger load is placed exactly at the highest ordinate, that will create the worst effect. Now should I place 50 in front or 50 behind me? Again, conceptually you can see this is the positive part of the diagram. So this 150 into 9 by 12 is going to be a positive value. So if I'm looking for the maximum worst value, then I have to put the 50 in front so that this also gets added up. So 150 into 9 by 12 plus 50 into 7 by 12 is the worst positive shear force I can have. And for the worst negative shear force, I will place the 150 just to the left of C, so that I get 3 by 12, which is the worst negative magnitude we have. And the 50 I will place on this side now, so that the negative shear force here gets added up. So 150 into 3 by 12 plus 50 into 1 by 12, and this is a negative value here. So this is the maximum negative shear force. Now this is a bending moment example. Two wheel loads 120 and 80 spaced on 2 meters move on a span of girder, a girder of span 16-meter long. Find the maximum bending moment at section 6 meter from the left end. So now I draw the the ILD for bending moment at this point C. This looks like this. We have already looked how simply supported beam bending moment ILD looks like. So it's like this. You get the ordinate from the ILD. Now, how am I going to place it? Now I know that 120 is the highest. I have to place the 120 at the topmost, like this highest point to make it the worst. 120 here. Now, should I put 80 this side or that side? Now see here 15 this highest value is reducing to 0 over a span of 6 meter. Here it is reducing to 0 over a span of 10 meter. So you can understand that this is falling slowly. So if I put 1 meter to this, sorry, this should be 2 meter I think. If I put 2 meter on this side and if I put 2 meter on that side, this part here the value will be higher because it is falling slowly. This part is falling off steeply, this part is falling slowly. So I have to put the 80 kilonewton on the right. And similarly, now I will just put I will find out these two magnitude, multiply with the forces and add them to get the maximum bending moment. So this will is another similar problem. So there are some examples. You have access to the slides. You can look at these examples later. So are there any questions? Next class we will start with indeterminate structure. So week seven
Hello.
to yes.
Uh, Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
Ma'am, my question is that the
Hmm.
shape of the ILD from statically determined beam to
Hmm.
statically indeterminate beam. What happens in the
Okay, so actually for that you need to know how to analyze statically indeterminate beams. which we haven't covered yet. So the main challenge is to find out the support reaction, because in statically indeterminate beams there are more support reactions than equations of equilibrium. So
Yes, yes,
you
yes.
have, suppose you have to fix a fixed beam, so you have three reactions here, you have three
It's this
reactions
side and
here.
this side.
Huh.
Okay.
So the problem is that once you have the support reactions, which we will look at next class, how to solve indeterminate structures. Once you have the support reaction, you can just treat it as a force, applied force, and then you will follow this exact same principle to draw the ILD.
Okay, as a unit load applied on that section.
Yes. The unit load will move. That is the concept of ILD. Unit load will move from this side to that side, and that is how the ILD magnitude will vary from this side to that side.
Okay. Okay,
Okay,
ma'am.
so next
And
week. Yes.
specifically, structure linear is influence diagram. Especially, what will be represented?
What?
Specifically, structure analysis, influence
Yes.
like line diagram. What represents?
It represents moving loads. So the most common way you can think of it is, suppose there is a bridge and a truck is moving along the bridge, along the span of the bridge. So the truck won't stand at one point and tell you that what, like the beam, the bridge is not seeing the truck at a specific point that you can fix the truck somewhere, and you can find the bending moment and shear force diagram by what we have already learned without influence and diagram. But the position of the truck is not fixed. The truck can move, it will move from one end to the other. So to find the critical responses, to find the critical bending moment and shear force, we also need to find the what position will be critical and then what section will be critical, instead of just
Okay.
seeing what is the critical section, fixing the load position.
Okay. Normal, you are just fixed movement, shear force and bending moment is a fixed, and in this case, and in case is a moving. Is there?
Loading,
Yes.
exactly.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. In practical applications, we do need to move the load and see, because that is what is going to happen in
No,
the
no,
real.
this is the dead load. You assign that the dead load and live load concept.
Exactly. Live load will move. Yes.
Live load will be because it is moving load. Okay,
Exactly.
and reaction also is it is for the statically determinate structure, and then in fixed beam at the both ends are fixed. Then at indeterminate structures.
So yeah, for indeterminate structure, we have to learn how to solve the support reactions first. After that, the entire process will be similar. And next class, we will look at how to solve support reactions for indeterminate structures.
Indeterminate. Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay. You are welcome. Okay, then I'll end the class. We'll meet again next Tuesday. Thank you for attending.
Okay, ma'am.